are here to present another interesting webinar in the series of Intech Olympiad webinars. The presenter today is Mr. Atul Bothe. So welcome, Atul. Atul is a founder and CEO of Lifetron Software. This is a startup which is building products and services to make people fit and healthy. Previously, Atul has held different roles, including technology, innovation, product management, technical sales, engineering, and strategy in both startup as well as large scale organizations. When it comes to startup, this is Atul's second startup. Atul is passionate about user experience and problem solving, driven by curiosity to uncover the struggling moment and find the unmet need of the customers, which can be built into nice products and services. So let's hear from Atul out of his experience. So over to you, Atul.
Thanks a lot, Mahesh. Thanks for having me here.
Atul, if you could speak a bit louder, your voice is a little low.
Okay, sure. Is this better?
It can be a little more louder.
Okay. Just give me a second. Is this better, Mahesh?
Yes, this is much better. Thank you.
So let me share my screen.
Yes, Atul.
Please let me know once you see it.
Yeah, it's visible now.
Okay. I think we can get started, right?
It's
okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sudhir, Mahesh, and everyone having me here. I'm excited as well. So we'll get started. So what we are planning to cover here is what is it all about problem and solution thinking. We'll also quickly have a look at the problem from the customer's lenses and how it has a multi-dimensional versions. We'll also talk about the innovation or the right time to think of the solution, building the solution. And then I have a very interesting product story, which probably at least the students will get a very good insights and the perspective. So you should stay tuned till the end of this presentation. Okay. We'll start with a great quote from Albert Einstein. So he had said that if he had an hour to solve a problem, he would spend 55 minutes thinking about the problem and just 5 minutes thinking about the solution. So what does that mean is it is very important that you spend a good amount of time understanding what the problem is versus building the solution of it. So we'll see what does that mean exactly. Okay. So it basically means is when you think of any idea, don't start with the solution and try to understand what's the underlying problem that you are solving with. And just think of your last idea that you wanted to work on and ask yourself, what was that you were thinking? Is that the problem or the solution that was you were thinking, right? And in most cases, I have found that people talk about the solution a lot, but not the problem. So basically, if there is no problem, there's no solution to work on. And you cannot start with saying like, I have this great technology, and then let me see what problem or solution we can solve using this technology. It's a very wrong way to start the problem or solve the problem, right? So you always have to first find the problem and then think of the solution. As said in the quote by Albert Einstein, you need to give a good time understanding the problem. And in general, problems don't really change much in most of the cases, but definitely your solution keeps on changing. So what does that mean? I'll just give you a quick example of it. So let's take an example of the problem statement is that I want to communicate with someone. It's a very simple problem statement, been there for thousands of years, right? So a few hundred years ago, people used pigeon to communicate or pass your message to someone, right? And over the period, there was an innovation, and we got the first telephone. So it's much better than pigeon. And then we got another telephone, which was a little advanced version of the first version. And then it helped you to communicate more effectively. And then we got the pager. I believe people who are born after 85 or 90, they might not even know what this technology is all about. It was a very short-lived technology. But it was there for solving the communication problem. And then we got into the phones, mobile phones. It helped. And in the internet era, there were different messengers that we were using, and so on. Like we have a lot of options available.
Atul, can you just check the screen when you are presenting? Has it got zoom? There is a message. You can check that.
I can.
No. I think screen is good.
Okay,
Yeah, it's fine.
Go ahead.
I can see it properly. Yes.
Screen is fine.
Yeah, no issue.
Okay, great. Thanks. Okay. So basically, if you look at all these options and all the way we were trying to solve a problem, a simple problem of passing a message from A to B, if you look at all this, the underlying problem always remains the same, is that I want to communicate someone. But over the period, there is a lot of innovation and different ways people are using to solve the same problem. I'll give you another example. If you were traveling, few years back, if you were traveling when from point A or city A to city B, what used to happen was you used to take a newspaper from the bus stand, and then while you were traveling, you used to spend your time with the newspaper or the book. So the problem there was that you want to be entertained yourself while you are commuting, right? You are going from point A to point B or city A to city B. So the problem was simple, that you don't want to get bored during the journey. So over the period, if you look at the same problem, what has happened was there's a luxury buses, right? They used to put some screens in the bus, and they used to play the videos. So while you are traveling, you can again entertain yourself by watching those videos. Over the period, that got replaced with the screens that fits in the buses, where you can play some series, TV series, movies, inbuilt movies. And over the period, again, that got replaced with the phones. Now buses don't have to make the arrangements, because now you can entertain yourself by using your own phone. And people play games, watch movies, hear music, and so on. So again, there, the underlying problem is the same, that you want to be entertained while you are going from city A to city B. So in most cases, if you think deeply, the problems normally doesn't change, but over the period, your solution keeps on changing. And that's the reason people say that you have to keep on innovating. If you don't do that, you will basically miss the bus. So basically, how do we get to the root of problem? If a problem is so important to understand, how do we get to the root of problem? So I think Ayurveda does a very good job in this, and the literature of if you talk to any Ayurveda doctor, let's say if you have a headache, for example, they probably don't give you a medicine on the headache, but they'll fix the problem somewhere else. Maybe they'll give you a tablet or medicine which is for your acidity, for example, but they don't give you a direct solution on your headache, but they'll fix the problem somewhere else, which fixes the core root of the problem. In the similar way, like you might see a lot of traffic, and it's a traffic problem. So what can we do with it? We cannot just keep on adding more roads and all, because there might be a different way of solving the problem. So this is a very interesting graphics that I found on internet. So it doesn't matter how many resources you have. If you don't know how to use them, they are all useless. So very thought-provoking and interesting graphics. Okay, so how do we get there? If you know the problem is so important, there are a couple of ways that I found a few interesting techniques. One of the technique is 5 why technique, and this technique was designed by a Japanese entrepreneur and the founder of Toyota Industry, and it's a very simple technique. Anyone can use it for any problem. So this was more for their mechanical problems that they were using this technique to solve the different problems that they find. So in this technique, all you have to do is ask why 5 times when someone comes to you with the problem. So what we'll do is we'll take an example of this. So the simple example for this would be, it's an hospital example wherein
Atul,
yeah.
sorry to interrupt. Can you please be a bit louder? There is a request.
Okay, sure. Is this good, Mahesh?
Yes, this is better.
Okay. So if we take an example of a typical hospital environment, the problem statement might be, someone comes to you and says that the patient was getting late to the operation room. Okay, so what's the problem? So all you have to do is ask 5 times why on this operation. So you ask them, why was the patient getting late to the operation room? So the answer would be, there was a long wait for the trolley. And then you again ask, there's some disturbance, I don't know. Can everyone mute, please? Okay, thank you. You ask the first why and you get an answer. Because there was a long wait for the trolley, the patient was getting late to the operation. You ask why was there's a long wait for the trolley, and then you might ask, because the replacement trolley had to be searched and it was not available. You can ask, why was the replacement trolley had to be searched, and the answer might be like, the original trolley was broken off, hence we have to search for the replacement trolley. You ask, why was the original trolley broke off, and the answer might be, because it was not regularly checked for wear and tear. And then you ask, why was it not regularly checked for it, and the answer would be, the hospital doesn't have a maintenance schedule for the equipment they have. And that's where you hit the root cause of the problem. So now, to solve the patient was getting late to the operation room, you have to fix the problem of the maintenance schedule. But it has nothing to do with the problem that you saw on top of it, but there is an underlying different problem that you need to solve. And all you have to do is fix the maintenance schedule for the equipment, and in most cases the problem will be solved for this. I have taken this example from the Daring to Live Fully website. People can go and see the same example there. So 5 why is one of the technique to look at the problem. So there is another way to look at the problem. It's more from the customer perspective. So let's say this is your current state and this is your desired state. Now, the idea is that you want to go from here to here, your current state to desired state. And your current state might be like, you are an engineer, you are a business person, and you might have a different profile. And your desired state might be that you want to get a job after your engineering, or you might want to launch a new product, or you might want to increase the sales. It can be any desired state. It's like a wow moment for you. So how do we solve a problem if you have such a state, right? And while you are thinking of a solution for this, what you need to understand very clearly is the struggling movement that you might face while you are going on the top of the solution and to the desired state. This is very important to figure it out, the struggling moment. If you can figure out this, it's likely that you will have a very good solution. But how do we know what the struggling movement is? Who should we go ask? Does the people know that struggling movement? The customer know the struggling movement? Who should we go and ask is the question that normally is asked. So does customer know what the problem are struggling with? So if you go to any customer and ask them, okay, this is the, what problem do you have? Normally, in most cases, I have seen that if you go to any customer and ask, what problem do you have? He'll say, I don't have any problem. So what it means is there's no need of any product, right? Because he or she doesn't know what the problem is. There's a very good quote from Steve Jobs. What he says is, it's not the customer job to know what they want, because they don't understand what their problem is. It's a very subtle and deep thought. So if customer doesn't understand what the problem is, how do you figure out what the problem is? It's a thought we need to think on, right? So let's take an example of the Uber case. So basically what Uber really does is it takes you from point A to point B, and when you have a different options already available, like buses, autos, and different options we have, right? What was really the need of Uber is the question, right? Because all it does, it take you from point A to point B. So what problem does it solving? So last graphics is very interesting graphics. You can think on it. So this is also an option you have, right, to take from point A to point B. So when there were so many options available, what problem does Uber is really solving? So what I'm going to do is I'll keep this open for you to think and maybe do some research on this. And I plan to give you some hints in next few slides to understand what really Uber solves. Because if you think on this, you will get a really deep understanding of how to solve or how to look at the problem from a different angle. Okay. So generally, customers and people are very solution oriented. Customers and people cannot think of the future state of a solution. So what that means is, Henry Ford has said this: if I had to ask people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. So it's really not a customer's job to think of a car. And it's a job of a really engineer or an entrepreneur to find that the future state and then design an effective solution of it. People, when they are used to horses for going from point A to point B, they just cannot think of a car. It's not it's their job to find out, figure that out. And that's the reason there are engineer and entrepreneur to figure that out. It's always an entrepreneur job of think of a solution such as car, which will take them from point A to point B a little faster, instead of you use a faster horses, right? On the problem and solution statements. So normally a problem and solution has a different dimensionals. If you cannot, in most cases, what happens is people think on a very functional aspect of the solution or the problem. Just take an example of Uber. Functional aspect is very simple, that you want to go from point A to point B. It's very simple, right? And there are multi options available, buses and different options available. But still, Uber works very well in most of the cases, right? So the functional aspect is not the only aspect that you need to work on while you are working on the problem or the solution. There are more to it, and they are very important. So the second aspect of it is the social aspect of it. How they want to be pursued by others. So socially, how you want people to see you while you are using the solution that has been there. So if you are using a Uber, it's a solution, right? How do you want people to see you while you are sitting in a car versus you are going by an auto or a bus or your own cycle or a bike or whatever it is, right? So that's the social aspect that needs to be considered. And there's the third one and very important aspect, the emotional aspect of the solution. How do you feel while using that solution? What is your state of mind while do you feel happy to use this solution? Or what's your emotional state, basically? See, these are very important and subtle aspects that you need to consider when you are building your solution. The functional aspect is always there. but it's not just the aspect that works. I will take a couple of examples. So assume that there are a couple of fitness clubs in your city, and then you want to join one of the club. And from functional aspect of it, it has all the things all almost equal. That is the features that they have. So it's like a product which has a different features, right? It has all the advanced equipment. It has a good personal trainer. It is close to your office or home, and it's also has a affordable fees and clean and maintain. So these are kind of a different features of a product or of a gym. Now, how do you decide which gym you choose? So in this case, probably you might choose either A or B because you don't have an option, you don't have any differentiator factor. Now, just imagine that if I add a twist to this and I say that, okay, now Amir Khan has recently joined the fitness club B. Now the same, if I ask you the same question, which fitness club do you join? Now your answer would be definitely different. I am assuming that you will all say that, okay, I would prefer to go to gym B because again, it has both the features. Now, if you look at from the functional aspect of it, nothing has changed because Amir Khan had joined that. They have not added a new equipment, right? So functionally, everything is still same. What has changed is the way you look at it from the social angle. Now, if you are thinking that because Amir Khan has joined that gym, you are joining that gym, then that's the wrong thinking. There's a very deep insight, which generally, if you ask someone, why did you join that gym? They might say that, okay, because Amir Khan is there, I also joined that gym. But there is a deep thought in it. The reason you have joined that gym is because you now have a justification or something to go and tell your friends that I also work out in the same gym where Amir Khan also works out. It has a very high social value. It makes a lot of difference. If you look at the same example for, let's say, Amazon, justification for the price that you are paying extra for that iPhone. And again, as I said, it has a very high social value. Okay. I'll give you my experience about early experience about me working with a blood bank. So basically, this was a side project for me, which was I was working probably 10 to 12 years ago. And I had a very good experience, and I was working there typically as an engineer, didn't have much thoughts on the entrepreneur, the way to look at the problems. So it's basically an engineer approaching a blood bank to solve their problem. So let me give, so when blood bank, when someone donates blood, right? But what the blood bank does is it gives you a card. And what I saw was in the process, they are wasting a lot of resources. As a typical engineer, you might see that they are wasting a lot of resources. They are wasting a paper, they are wasting their energy in writing it, and so on. So I thought, why not digitalize this card and then send that the same card with the SMS or maybe a PDF version? That will save a lot of things, a lot of time for a blood bank, right? On the functional aspect, it looked good. And generally, this card cost around 5 to 10 rupees each donor. And normally, every blood donation camp, there are like 75,000 people, there, 75 to 100 people joins the camp. And this will basically save 750 to 1,000 rupees per camp. And since NGO, blood bank is an NGO, if they take 365 camps a year, this is a good amount for them to save, being an NGO. So from a functional aspect, it all looks good because I don't see anything wrong. But when I approached different blood banks, they were also not giving a reason why this will not work, because they don't understand deeply why this will not work. But they were also not accepting this as a solution. They were rejecting my idea. And so it was very difficult to figure out what the problem is there. So I'm just throwing out to you, like, can you think of if there is anything wrong with the future state or the desired state? We'll just go a little more detail in this. So I've taken this an example for students, being assuming that there will be a lot of students here, right? So, so in your current state, you might say that I don't know if I'll get a job after engineering. That's your current state of it. You are not very confident about the way you are working. There may be a lot of people suggesting you to different things. Like someone might say do ML, someone might say .NET, MBA, and so on. So I've taken examples mostly into the computer science, but different engineering background might get a different advices, and these are very confusing. So student is very confused in this. So what should he or she do? And your desired state might be like something like this, that you want advice that you can trust. Okay, you want to be very highly motivated in your desired state. You need a very clear direction on what steps should you take to go as a next steps, right? And then you want someone who can guide you for your future. So there is a very good difference between your current state and desired state. So from to this is basically a wow moment for you, right? If you achieve this desired state, it's a wow moment for you. So to go from this state to this state, you need a solution. You need certain platform. So I think IT Intech Olympiad is one of the platform which will basically does the same job, right? It's a solution for you to go from this state. So there might be multiple solutions, but I think this is one of the very good platform that you have to go from your current state to your desired state, because you are learning a lot in the process. Okay, so we looked at this figure, but we'll look in more deep. So when you are going from a point A to point B, or your current state to the desired state, you just don't have to consider only the functional aspect of it. You need to consider the social, emotional jobs that you might have to do while you are going on the top of the mountain, right? So if you only consider the functional approach of it, it might not be a great solution. But if you consider all the aspects for you to take from a step point A to point B, that makes your solution great. So there can be a solution like which takes you in this fashion, right? You are still reaching out there, but you have to face a lot of problem in the process. And there might be another solutions which might take you very cleanly there. Again, if you compare this with maybe Uber versus the different option available, or maybe Flipkart versus Amazon, and there are a number of other products that you can compare. What do they consider only functional job, or do they also consider the other aspects of the job that you are trying to do, right? So if you consider all the jobs, I think your solution would be great. So this is the last part of my presentation, the story of Khata Book that I promised you. I think you will feel very motivated after you hearing the story. So I'll give you the end result of this story first, before understanding what the story about. So the Khata Book is an application developed in India, and they have raised so far 173 million of the funding. Okay, this is a huge funding for a startup to be raised. Okay, they have 1.1 million daily active users. Again, a huge number for a startup to have so many active users. And they record almost 20,000 crore of transaction per month. Now, these are probably old figures. I have got it from internet, but a current state might be a little different. So the application, the application this was designed by a student named Vaibhav. He was from a very small village called Deglur in Nanded district. Very small village, probably 40 to 50,000 population. Okay, and the way he built this application, his father ran an electrical shop in Bangalore. Okay, a very small shop. And what Vaibhav saw was his father is struggling to keep the track of receivables and other account management activities. And every day he saw his father spending evening or end of his day in managing those tasks. So, and Vaibhav also knows how to run a shop because he was also helping his father to run the shop. So he understands that pain of doing all this end day activity. So what Vaibhav did was he simply started learning the Android programming using the resources available on internet, and he decided to develop an app which will keep off the transaction that his father does during the day. It's that simple application. All he had done was create a simple application using an Android phone. And to an interesting part was there was no backend, there was no UI design. All he did was understand the correct struggling movement of his father and then tried to solve that problem using the Android mobile application. And over the period he saw that it's helping a lot to his father, so he just communicated the same thing to nearby stores and everyone started using it. And that's how this app has become a big story, and they have raised these numbers, records 20,000 crore of transactions. It's a very good story for an engineer to look at how to look at the problem and provide a solution for that. So Bob Mesta says that a struggling movement is the seed of innovation. If you can figure out what the struggling movement is, I think you can innovate and create great solutions which will help a lot of people. I think Vaibhav did the exactly same thing. And that's the end of my presentation. I have given few books and the blogs that you can go through to understand more about this topic. Because we have a short of time, you can learn a lot from these different books. Alan Clements, When Coffee and Kale Compete, and then Competing Against Luck by Clay Christensen. He was a Harvard professor and has done a lot of things on the innovation. And Atomic Habits by James Clear. I think it's a very good book, although it doesn't talk anything about the technology aspect of it, but habit is one of the great force which because of which you decide which product to buy and which doesn't. So that's give you a completely different aspects. The lot of content I have taken from the blogs and written by these guys. So that's all from my side. Thank you very much for hearing me. I'm open for the questions if you have any.
Thank you so much, Atul. It's a wonderful thought. Definitely an interesting and different perspective. And it would help the listeners to delve more into these thoughts and add more dimensions while they are thinking of a solution or trying to even identify the crux of the problem. So sure, this is going to be a lot of help for the students as well as some of the mentors.
Thanks a lot, man.
Yes, thank you, Atul. So with this, I think we can open up for the questions. If anybody has any questions, we can discuss here, or Atul has already given his email address, Twitter handle. So we can talk both online as well as offline. So we will be standby for a few minutes for the questions.
Okay. I think there are no questions from the audience, Mahesh.
Yeah, we'll just wait for a minute or so because I'm also asking if there are any questions by the YouTube audience. There is an
okay.
audience.
Okay, sure. Okay.
So Sudhir, with this, should we now just stop here?
Yeah, I think we should stop because it seems that the students need some time to digest this entire idea. But Atul, I'm sure the students would come back to you
Yes,
with.
Sudhir, your voice is not, you're not audible.
No, is that? Can I?
I can hear you. I can
Yeah.
hear you, Sudhir. Yeah.
Yeah. See, Atul, I think the students would need some more time to digest this entire thought process.
Sure.
Because our entire system is such that, and I keep on struggling as an academician, that whenever there is a problem, we jump on a solution without understanding anything.
Yeah.
So
Right.
most of our time is spent on finding a solution,
Yes.
and without finding how to deal with that. And that's what exactly we all are talking about. I think let them digest this idea first, and we will come back to, and they will come back to you. In fact,
Sure.
if from our mentors, if anybody has anything to say, please feel free. And maybe one question, it's theory part, but how we actually used it uh, in our life, actually it's a big problem. See,
Yeah.
Atul, what students are, there is a question privately sent to me, maybe it's basically theory part.
Mm-hmm.
What you talked about is the theory part,
Right.
but how
Yeah.
to implement it in life, it's a big problem. Actually, people are struggling. Can you
Right.
throw some light on that?
Yeah. So basically, if you look at the Vaibhav's problem, right, what Vaibhav did was he tried to figure out what the struggling moment is, right? So it's all about how you think of. So he didn't thought of building an app, right? He didn't even know how to build an app, right? He initially only thought of what his father was struggling with, and then once he figured out, okay, he is struggling to keep the maintain the record, and then he learned the technology to solve that problem. So what happens is it's really a mind switch. What happens normally is, because you know how to develop an Android app, you immediately start writing some app for it without understanding the problem. It has to be exactly opposite. You cannot start with the technology, and if you start with the technology, it's a very limiting factor, because now your all entire scope is around the technology, not outside the technology. That's where in fact most of the innovation happens. If, let's say, you have a problem, if you figure out a problem, and you can use like 5 why techniques, or you work well, because there is a lot has gone behind the scene to cater the social and emotional aspect of it. So as I said, you need to figure out the struggling moment of it by using maybe a 5 why techniques, or understanding the social aspect of it, where the person is coming from. So let me give you one more example. Recently, I was talking to one of my friend who has recently bought an Android phone, uh, and he was an iPhone user. So I asked him, why did you got an Android phone? So again, see, this is an interview process where you try to find out what is the struggling moment. So he said that there's no more innovation these days in iPhone. Now, if I take the face value, right? So I also think, oh, okay, there's no much innovation happening in iPhone, and Android is almost similar. So I know that was not the reason, because he was kind of an iPhone lover. So I know that was definitely not the reason. So I tried to figure out, I tried to go little detail in deep, right? So I'd ask him a few different questions. And one of the question, he said that he is trying to develop an Android app. And that's where that root cause of the buying Android phone versus uh, iPhone reveals, right? He wants a phone so that he can also develop the Android app, he can also test it, he can also show it to his friends. uh, I know he had, so again, if you can go a little deeper into that, he had bought this I believe a Nokia phone, if I'm not wrong. So I tried to find out why he did not go for a Samsung or some other phone. Again, you can go as much as deep if you want to figure out what's the struggling moment, or what's the motivating factor that made him buy a certain product versus other available options. So he said me that the first problem was for sure that he wanted to develop an Android app. That's the reason he switched from iPhone to Android. This when I tried to dig a little deeper, I figured out Nokia provides an upgrade, probably 3 or 4 major upgrades to this phone versus the available phones in the market. So for him, it was an easy option because now when he had to test for the latest Android operating system, right? You don't have to buy another phone because he can just upgrade that phone, and then you have basically you can test it on the latest phone. So that's how you have to go deeper, inquire basically in detail about what the problem is and why he got this product versus the other product. I hope that answers Sudhir.
Yeah, Atul, thank you so much. There is one more question where the student is asking, sometimes what happens, the problem changes, right? The problem changes means the customer demand changes. For example, while buying the mobile, probably now customers have started looking at the aspect of a camera or the features of camera.
Okay.
Now this keeps on changing actually, right? So in that case, is it related to the question here is, I'm just figuring out the question from this description.
Okay.
And the question here is, when these expectations are changing, how do we think about those expectations, maybe to create a solution, maybe well ahead of time?
Yeah, I think if you look at what Henry Ford said, right? If you ask customer what they want, they will always tell you they want the faster horses. They cannot imagine a car, right? Again, it's a job of an entrepreneur or an engineer to figure that out, assuming by looking at the functional aspect, emotional aspect, and all those different aspects. That's where you create, or that's the innovation that you have to do. You have to see what. So one of the good way to innovate the things is see where the customer is doing workaround. So the other day I saw a girl taking his kid on a two-wheeler, and then he just tied him, and then he was taking. The reason she was doing that work around because she didn't have a right solution for take a kid from place 1 to place 2 with a good solution, like, right? So all you have to see what is the customer doing right now, what workaround the customer is trying to do. And the reason that customer does that workaround is because he or she doesn't have the right solution available in the market that he or she can use. So workaround is a great opportunity for innovation.
Yeah, that's great, Atul. That means the way we all are talking about the Intake Olympiad, this online internship, and solving the problems, the statement is given, and we all are asking students to ensure that instead of just giving us a solution, give us multiple thought to that solution. Ultimately, you have to come to a solution which will satisfy most of the needs of the customer. Right? That's what we all are talking about. So yes. It's Atul, is it that it's a change in the thought process? Because years together, we have been told that this is the way to think. So when there is a problem, this is how you should go and get a solution. And you are proposing a totally different thing where adding those emotional and other aspects. I think students will get benefited because of this.
Correct.
But while talking about those emotional, so there is one more question. It's very difficult to understand that emotional and other things which you talked about. It's a straightforward thought process of a student. So correct. The question is, how do I inculcate that and how do I find it actually?
Yeah, you need a practice. There is no other way.
Okay.
There's no other way. You have to read on it. You need to ask different questions. You need to fail. You need to learn. Only then you can learn. If it was so simple, right? Everyone would have done that, right?
Correct. That's right. So in short, we are giving them a platform where failure is allowed actually.
Of course, yes.
Yeah. Great. Mahesh, do you want to say something?
Yes, this is a very interesting thought. Definitely, I mean, these questions were quite interesting, and a lot of information that Atul shared and you talked about. That made me think about one additional point. I'll take a few minutes because we have a few minutes. What happened? First, I'll recite an incident. This was like a few years ago when we were also exploring IoT and developing certain solutions based on IoT. In fact, Atul was heading one of the crucial kind of project in the IoT, and we were directly working with Intel. But during the same period, on one of the products that we were working, we built a solution where all these residential apartments, their water monitoring, water level monitoring, because in the summer typically all this tanker business starts and people rely heavily on water tankers. So we built a solution where the top tank and bottom tank water levels are maintained, and basically the minute to minute monitoring was shared on the mobile phone and web application and so on and so forth for the concerned society members and users. Now with that solution, we could successfully save a lot of tankers for different residential tankers customers. Because the monitoring, when the tanker was put down on the bottom tank, the level and the volume was calculated automatically, and the dispute, there was always a question mark how much water was released in the tank, that got saved. And then water level usage and wastage was also controlled, because if the top tank water level was going down continuously, then basically proactively people could identify where the water leakage was, and there's to close the tap and so on and so forth. So there are multiple features, but then we were struggling to implement this because basically we saw that the security personnel, the security guards who were were reluctant to kind of help us. They would do something with the equipment, so equipment would go down and not switch on and things like that. Then we realized that the security personnel threat, that as a felt it as a threat to their job. They thought basically with all these solutions that we are coming up with, water level management and personal tracking in the premises and so on and so forth, they may be, the jobs may be redundant, right? So what we did is then we involved security personnel. Even there was no need for resetting the device. We told them, hey, you have a requirement. There is a need for you to go every midnight there and then reset the device, right? Switch it off and switch it on. Now, the moment we introduced this thing, all of a sudden that reluctance and the resistance from the security personnel went off, right? And then we kind of came out of that big problem of making sure that our devices were on continuously. So this is one example I can think of. So how basically solution, you have to tweak the solution. Even the technology was same, the product was same, certain process we had to implement to make sure that the solution is workable in the given set of constraints. And another thought that I have is, now in today's world, there is very thin line between product and services. Now basically people kind of not only expect a product, but they expect service out of the product. So if you think of Uber, Flipkart, Amazon, everything is a mix, right? So it is technology driven a business in the end. So when we want to think about a solution, we have to also think about different aspect, as Atul highlighted, emotional aspect, social aspect, just not the functional thing, right? What happens typically when we give problem statement, students think about the pattern in which the problems need to be solved, and then we think about Arduino, we think about Raspberry Pi, we think about this microprocessor, that controller chip, this controller chip, activation, deactivation. So we get into technology quickly. What is needed is to, as Atul highlighted, identify the problem correctly, identify various struggling moments in the problem that the customers have, and really, if we were to build the solution the way what we are doing now, we would be giving fast horses, right? And definitely we will never come out with car, right? So we want to change that approach and sit back and think about a problem, because if you think more about the problem, asking all those whys, that 5 whys Atul mentioned, we might get to root cause of problem and really come up with a different nice set of features and come up with an elegant solution. So that's what I wanted to comment on. Thank you.
Yeah, just to add to this, Mahesh, what I have also seen is like, let's say if someone comes with the problem, I mean, someone comes with an idea, right? He tried to justify when he talked to different people about that problem, and he always tried to look for how does that justify the need of this solution. And even if he get one or two yes, he will feel very confident about the problem. But again, as I said, that's the wrong way to start with, because you have started with the solution or the technology.
Okay, so that's where we all are insisting on. Most of our mentors are insisting that don't jump on a solution, actually. Right. And there is one more. I think one student is even struggling to get a question, because he said there is something called as a customer survey. Now, whenever we are indicating that you said that customer will never talk about anything, all right?
Yes.
But then there is an aspect called as customer survey. So what is that customer survey, and how that fit in this thought process?
From my perspective, customer survey is the very wrong way to do it. I mean, it doesn't give you anything. It doesn't give you anything that you can immediately work upon. And you know what state of mind the customer is when he is filling out that form, right? He might be angry with someone and he just gave some wrong reasons for you or wrong ratings for you, right? So you cannot make it out anything from that. All it needs, you don't have to talk to 1,000 people. All you have to talk to like maybe 10 or 15 people, and after 15 people you will start realizing that the same things is been repeated. Once you look at that, it means you have identified the problem statement now, because everyone is trying to repeat the same thing from the 15 people. So customer survey, in my angle, is very wrong way to do it. It doesn't give you anything to immediately work upon.
Okay.
Okay, if I may just add, Atul, I agree with you. I just thought customer survey before defining a solution sometimes can help understanding a problem better if it is a survey is properly framed, just to get information as in the form of yes or no. The data collection part, for that, if the customer survey use is not a bad idea. And second is, if we use it post development of some solution, if we use it for checking how satisfied the customers are, that could be another way of getting a feedback for the solution that has been provided. From that point of view, customer survey could be of use. Just my view.
I disagree on the last point, because if you ask them how satisfied you are, right? So everyone has a different motivation. Let's say if there's a customer and I want him to, especially there's an emotional anger, I don't want to tell him some bad things, right? I just want to be good in front of him. So I'll say, okay, your product is very good. But if you ask them, have you used it? He'll say, no, I didn't get a chance. So again, you get a wrong reasons or wrong survey in that. You always have to understand his emotional statement. I'll give you one example.
You have a point.
I'll give you one example. I was doing this similar survey, and I was talking to a lot of people. Normally, there are two people who you should talk. One that who are using your product, and one that who have just left using your product. So they are not interested in your product. These are the two good people you should always speak. So I was talking to one of the person. She was a lady out from Mumbai, and since we are into health and fitness, I was trying to understand. She was using a competitor's product, so I was trying to understand what made her not to use that product. So I get some insights. So I talked to her almost 45 minutes, and around 45 minutes, I figured out what the real problem was. So I asked her, what was the problem? Why did you left it? So their first answer is the never answer that you should rely on. You have to dig deeper and deeper and deeper. So that's the reason it took me 45 minutes to understand the reason. So he said that the trainer was not good, and he was not following up with me, and all those wrong reasons that I can easily believe on. But I know that was not the reason, because it's very easy to give those reasons. When I dig it deeper and deeper, I realized that she was getting married in a month. She wanted to lose weight, and she has only a 1 month's time frame, and it has been already a week that has been passed, and there was a great anxiety, and he was not at all happy with the progress that is being made, and that's the reason she was not happy with the product. Now, if you look at from the anxiety point of view, right, I mean, if she had been, if she had a 6 months of time, she probably would have gone with the same, or she might have used the same product. But now there is a like time limiting factor. She need to get fit in a month's time, and it makes her very anxious if there is no progress in that. So there are different reasons people will give if you don't dig deeper in that.
Yeah, that's the reason I think that student has now come out with, because this is what is written in theory. Customer doesn't know about the problem, huh? But in product life cycle management, customer survey is the first step.
Right.
That's how it works actually. That's how it is.
Correct.
And we need to change this entire thought process. Good to say that customer survey to certain extent is good, but not to rely totally on that. Am I right, Atul?
Yes, 100%. Yes.
Yeah. Do you want to say anything, Mahesh? Because now we don't have any question left, and if at all the question is there, can be answered afterwards also. Yeah, Mahesh.
Yes. Yeah, actually, this is a wonderful session. I'm quite happy with the quality of discussion that's happening here, and many of the students may not even realize in the kind of quality discussion they are part of. Eventually, as they make progress in their career, they will realize the depth of this discussion and the content. Those who already understood a lot of it, I think they have done a lot of progress. On the present, they should not be worried about their future, because this is where it ultimately boils down to how to approach solving a problem and how to find elegant solutions. So yes, this is great. Thank you so much for this content, Atul. Thank you, Sudhir, for hosting. And looking forward to the next session.
Yes, definitely. Yes, we will in touch. But for the students, those who are present, we will be keeping this presentation and this recording of this on YouTube, and we will share the presentation with request. Yeah. And then you want to say something? Yeah, go ahead. So the point is, we will keep that presentation for the students, and we will share this presentation also. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much, all of you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Thanks, Atul. Bye-bye.
किती लोक आहेत त्याच्यात